Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan at MS Pierce. This is a Ukraine war update news segment for the 18th of March 2023. Let's get straight to the opening gambit, which is the Ukrainian released figures for the Russian losses the day before, all the usual caveats, inaccurate propaganda, yada, yada, yada. Russia don't produce the same figures. I find these useful, indicative, and actually somewhat accurate. We have 880 liquidated personnel. That's an uptick from yesterday. High number. It's not in the thousands as we have seen it. The record numbers are sort of 1,100, but 880 is a bad day for the Russians. 5 tanks, 7 APCs, 8 artillery systems, 2 MLRS, 8 artillery systems, artillery pieces. That is significant. There's been a consistent number of artillery units taken out over the preceding weeks, and I think together, if you take on the claim that the Russians are having to fix quite a lot of artillery pieces with barrels being worn out and so on and so forth, then I have a feeling that their artillery capacity is somewhat diminished, and then you put that together with shell hunger as well. Obviously, this sort of stuff is going to be happening with the Ukrainians too. 2 MLRS systems taken out for the Russians. We'll actually see an Ukrainian MLRS system taken out by a Lancet drone soon. I'll show you that. 14 drones. There was a drone attack last night, 3 vehicles, and 1 piece of special equipment. You might have expected me to start with the news about Putin. No, that's not the news that he's been sent to the moon in an ill-fitting Iron Maiden. He has been issued an arrest warrant by the ICC, International Criminal Court for war crimes. That is huge news, and I wonder whether there's been a retaliation to that news with a drone attack last night. It might not be the case. Anyway, I just want to show you this T90 tank. This is the T90 Proriv tank, well, the T90M basically. It came out in 2017. It's their latest best tank with the best kit on, upgraded sort of ERA, explosive reactive armor, all these bits and bobs on there. And there aren't too many of these on the front line. And when they do turn up, it's quite something. Like the Ukrainians get excited when they capture one or take one out. It's quite big news. In fact, it was announced in the Kremlin area by Serhiy Haidai that they've gone through all their T90Ms. They brought them to the front line. It's a kind of one of their main areas of offensive, and actually they've cycled through their T90s. They're back to using T72s. But things are not looking good for the Russians in that respect. Well, here we have the reason I'm showing you this video is that the Russians are sort of really proud of their T90M, or they're pretty happy with them. And that's the introduction to the video showing what it does, what it looks like. And in this case, you have a drone dropping IEDs on them. I want to show you this because they dropped successive IEDs on this T90 that take out the T90 in a really fundamental way. You'll see in a second that the third IED triggers a massive explosion, which is absolutely catastrophic. Here you go. Bang. There's no tank there after that. That's for sure. So that's the end of that T90, and then at the end, and you can see all the debris everywhere. I mean, fundamentally blown up. And then apparently that's it there. I don't know if that's definitely the same vehicle, but anyway, that's a T90M getting taken out. Now, why I showed you that is A, it's a T90, and that's quite significant. But B, here's the Ukrainians trying to take out a Tunguska air defense piece, and they fail because they just drop one. Now, sometimes I think they should just drop lots in case at the same time, and they'll hit various places without giving them a chance to escape. Well, in this case, you can see that hits, and then straight away these guys shoot off. So we've just had something dropped on us. Let's go. And that signifies that obviously it's not abandoned. That is a working Tunguska. And indeed, the hatch opens. Someone gets out there, and then it moves off. So yeah, shame that only one ID was dropped on that. So going to Su-25 is taken out near Berestova. Berestova is north of Bakhmut. There's several Berestovas, but I think this is the one. Here it gets, there's video evidence of it getting taken out at a distance. And this is using a Pure Run Manpad, which is a Polish provided Manpad, the one that's quite useful it can be used at night. It's got good nocturnal imaging, but there's a Su-25, so that's pretty problematic for the Russians. They seem to be losing consistent numbers of aircraft. Here we have a Vampire, an MLRS, a Czech-provided multiple launch rocket system taken out by a Lancet kamikaze drone. These are still providing quite a headache for the Ukrainians. The Russians are using these effectively. The Ukrainians are responding by creating not purpose-built kamikaze drones, but their own improvised drones where they attach things like RPG, rocket-propelled grenade warheads to first-person view racing drones and things like that, and they're using them quite effectively. You're seeing a lot more footage from the Ukrainians, I think, as an answer to this. Right, I think last night there was a drone attack. It wasn't a huge drone attack. Here it says 11 out of 16 Shahed 136 and 131s were taken out of the sky. I don't know that that's actually the final figures, because there were 3 got through in Lviv and 3 got through in Dnipropetrovsk region. So that's 6 that definitely didn't get shot down, as far as I can work out. So that's probably not the latest figures. But it's interesting that you've had times where Shaheeds have been 100% taken out. And last night that wasn't the case, and they caused some pretty significant damage. So I think that they worked out where, I think if they sent like that amount of drones against Kyiv, all of them would have been taken out, because they're sending them against different places. They're finding out their weaknesses, and they know that they can get certain ones through. It's a long way to get to Lviv, though. I have to say, that's right across Ukraine, and these aren't fast-moving drones. So there's a worry that they can do that and get those drones all the way through. So he said that 3 drones got through to Lviv, and you're starting to see some pretty incredible footage of an infrastructure facility in Dnipropetrovsk. I've seen various things that this is a massive fuel, I wouldn't say dump, a massive fuel storage facility. I've seen someone else saying it doesn't really look like fuel storage. It could well be grain storage. I don't know, but it's really significant fire going on. I mean, just something absolutely incredible footage, and sadly, not in a good way. Really huge explosions involved there. Massive. If that was fuel, I'm fairly sure that would be darker smoke. I know it's quite dark, but I don't know that is actually fuel. So it could be grain. The grain flour can be pretty flammable there. So I don't know. It might well be fuel, but either way, that's a massive problem for the Ukrainians. A, that Shahed drones can get through. B, they can cause this much damage, and C, that this is going to be a hit either to fuel or to food. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Konstantinivka, which is to the west of Bakhmut, has been hit with shelling. Residential buildings in the town near the front line, and no news of casualties. So that looks like that's been badly hit. And S-300s have taken out Zaporizhia again, or areas of Zaporizhia. So this is a cafe complex, I think, taken out by S-300. So arguably not. Unless there really were military there could have been, but arguably not a military target. S-300s do quite a lot of damage, and then they're pretty inaccurate in their ground-to-ground capacity, or capability. So that is, the Russians really have had a night of trying to hit quite a few areas, I think. On the other hand, there's a Russia on fire incident. Historic St. Peter and Paul Orthodox Church is on fire, situated quite near the centre, just outside the Garden Ring. It was reputedly designed by Peter the Great. Again, we are seeing lots of fires within Russia, this time on quite an important cultural site. Moving off the losses and hits and whatnot, going on to the British intelligence update, this talks about how and I almost reported this the other day but didn't. Basically, Russia have changed the conscription age from 18 to 27 to 21 to 30. And I think the reason they've done this is so that they can get people after they come out of uni, because you can get exemption for being in education. So they just moved it to the end of university, and then hit people as soon as they come out of university, in order to get those young people, at the prime of their lives. No, they need to. They obviously need to ensure that they're getting a better haul on their conscription rates. So that is a big move, and the British intelligence talk about that. Um, Even if Russia continues to refrain from deploying conscripts in the war, extra conscripts will free up a greater proportion of professional soldiers to fight. They can put these conscripts in various places around the country doing X, Y, and Z, while those more experienced soldiers can be sent to frontline. This isn't necessarily to do with the Ukraine war at all, but I just thought I'd throw this one in. Russian rescue team member. So the Turkish earthquakes recently. Russia, like many countries, sent some people to help there. A Russian rescue team member who worked in Turkey after the earthquake stole nearly $500,000 in euros and dollars from the debris. The FSB raided his apartment in Moscow, and he tried to throw the money from the window. And here you just see, it's raining money. It's raining money. There you go. Dollars and euros around, just thrown out the window. And some guy, that was nice of him, go and help out. And by help out, he appeared to understand help himself to stuff. Right, military aid. As you know, I reported yesterday, government has, that Poland has said they're going to give MiG-29s pretty much imminently. Fantastic news. Slovakia said that they're going to transfer all 13 of their retired MiG-29 combat jets to Ukraine in the coming months. This announcement comes the day after Poland stated they would transfer 12 with 4 of them in the coming days. And it could be, if they give all of them Poland, it could be that Ukraine get 40 of these. However, it has to be said that even Yuri Ignat, the spokesperson for the Air Force, said these are old planes. I mean, it's kind of like thanks, but actually these have got outdated, obsolete radars and missiles. So they would either have to be upscaled, up kitted, or they would be used in other ways. So yes, they help to protect our skies against cruise missiles and drones, so they could be used rather defensively rather than offensively. But essentially he's saying, but really we need better planes than these. But still, that's obviously great. It opens a door. It's like planes are now given. Okay, what can everyone else do? So really, really useful. And with that, Slovakians have also given. This is a precursor. This is a cube or cube. This is a precursor to the Buk air defense system. So it's quite old, but useful enough. The Slovakian have approved the transfer of this air system to Ukraine. I don't know how many. I don't know how many missiles. But it is something else to add into the air defense mix. This is interesting because you might think, okay, this is just a video of Ukrainians passing a load of vehicles. Yeah. What you have is, there's a Husky, there's a Wolfhound, there's a load of Humvees, but interestingly, there are a number of Oshkosh vehicles which appear to have been given by the US. These are MRAPs, mine resistant. You can tell they're much further off the ground, so they resist themselves to mines exploding underneath them much better. These are Oshkosh MRAPs. And why that's significant is that I don't think the US have announced these, and yet there's a whole bunch of them in Ukraine, which is significant. So it makes you wonder how many things the US hasn't announced that Ukraine have, and there's quite a number of them there, and they look like they're going somewhere. Ukraine using artillery shells, rockets, and mortars made in Iran. So there's an irony here. It was provided as aid by the US. So in fact, the US keeps seizing. I think they've just seized another shipment of Iranian weaponry and ammunition going to Yemen. They've seized that, and I guess what the US are doing is all the seized weaponry they're getting off places like Iran, when they seize this stuff, they're sending to Ukraine, as you sensibly would. Put it to some use. The Iranian 125mm tank ammunition made in September 2022 is really recent, being used by the AFU, firing Iranian shells back at the Russian troops on several fronts, especially in Bakhmut. So that's a military aid, not a lot, but I'm now going to talk about very quickly about what's going on with Putin. So Putin, I wrote an article last night, which is Putin issued arrest warrant for war crimes. He has been issued an arrest warrant along with Maria Alexeyevna Lvova-Belova, and she has been issued an arrest warrant as well. And this is for the war crime of illegally transporting children. one report recently says at least 6,000 have been transported. The Ukrainians claim well over 16,000 have been transported. In fact, recently the Russians were putting these children, on show as propaganda, which is absolutely terrible. And the arrest warrant has a jurisdiction in 123 countries, which means that although they have no power of arrest, the ICC, International Criminal Court, the countries that are under that jurisdiction are obliged to arrest the person who is under warrant. So this would be Putin, technically unable to go to all these countries, including South Africa, which is part of BRICS, and Brazil, which is part of BRICS. Now, whether they would actually arrest him is interesting, but this is problematic. This is problematic for him going forward. She's the woman that's been issued a warrant. She has adopted a 15-year-old child from Mariupol and thanked Putin on TV publicly for that. Absolutely incredible. Putin is scheduled to attend BRICS summit in South Africa in August. South Africa is a member of the ICC and is obliged to arrest him, but they did refuse to arrest Omar al-Bashir in 2015, so they might not. But this is going to cause some controversy, no doubt. This is an extraordinary moment, says Steve Rosenberg for the BBC. The serving president of the world's largest country, a nuclear power, P5 member, the president who once hosted world leaders at G8 and G20 in St. Petersburg, the ICC has issued an arrest warrant for him over alleged war crimes. It's more escalatory than all the weapons the West has sent to Ukraine combined. Let's see if we get nuked within the next hour or not. Time to draw conclusions and act accordingly. In fact, the best part about the arrest warrant for Putin and Lvova Belova is that the ICC went after the highest authority in Russia and a mid-level regime official. Everyone between them is now aware that they could be next. The desire of regime members to get rid of Putin has just shot up. Indeed, predictably, Margarita Simonyan, someone who has incited genocide, and I talked about her in previous episodes, is implying that the country that might try to arrest Putin would be nuked. This is like how desperate they've got. Okay, if you're going to try and arrest us, we'll nuke you. The threats are incredible. And then Mark Hartling, a former Bradley commander, said, as an Ivy League educated lawyer, I'm sure Ron DeSantis, who claimed recently that this is just a territorial dispute, the war is just a territorial dispute, realizes that most national leaders don't receive a war crimes warrant from the ICC in The Hague for just a territorial dispute. So this has really ramped up things. A step towards the biggest conflict in the history of mankind, says the Serbian President Vucic about the warrant of the ICC for Putin. When I was told that the ICC had issued an arrest warrant for Putin, I decided to think about what to say and especially what to do. This is an endless escalation. I fear that we may be heading in the direction of the biggest conflict in the history of the world. I ask anyone that does not have the sense to bring it to an end if they understand that the consequences it will lead to. Absolutely incredible. So just to move on, because I've just got to shoot out now, Turkey has decided that the process of ratification of Finland's membership to NATO, to start that process. So it looks like Finland's going to NATO. So Putin really hasn't succeeded in his aims, has he? Easy to forget that, and this is talking about China and the US, that even given the mounting tensions between the two and the proposed decoupling from China's economy, that they're having record bilateral trade in goods of nearly $700 billion. So anyway, there you go. That's the news for today. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. This is probably going to be out late. I've got to go and see my son play football.